Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. 90-Day Fiancé. Happily ever after's Brandon wants to reveal the pregnancy news to his parents, but I think he's making the wrong call. The upcoming season of 90-Day Fiancé, Happily Ever After, is shaping up to be one of the most emotionally charged yet, and at the center of it all is Brandon Gibbs, the Virginia farm boy who's about to embark on a brand new chapter of life. After years of ups, downs, and plenty of meddling from his parents, Brandon is ready to reveal the biggest news of his life. He and his wife, Julia Trubkina, are expecting a baby. But if you've followed Brandon and Julia's journey, you know that sharing this kind of news with his parents, Betty and Ron, is never simple. A long road to family harmony. Brandon and Julia's love story has always been a mix of fairy tale romance and family tension. When Julia first arrived in the US from Russia, she was full of hope and excitement. But that enthusiasm quickly met reality. And reality came in the form of a strict bedtime, early morning chores, and a mother-in-law who seemed to think she was still raising her son. Betty and Ron meant well, of course. They wanted to help the young couple get on their feet, but their version of help often crossed into control. From deciding when Brandon and Julia could share a room to monitoring birth control, Betty's overbearing ways became one of the show's most memorable and controversial storylines. Yet despite all the chaos, Brandon and Julia survived. They eventually moved off the family farm, found jobs, and began building a life on their own terms. But even as they settled into independence, one thing remained constant. Betty's influence loomed large. So when Brandon learned that he was going to be a father, his joy was quickly followed by a familiar wave of anxiety. How could he tell his parents, the same parents who once panicked at the idea of him sharing a bed, that their little boy was about to become a dad? The secret he can't keep. According to a production insider, Brandon has been bursting at the seams to share the news. Julia, on the other hand, has been more cautious. She's excited but also wary of how Betty might react. Julia doesn't want to deal with a lecture or a guilt trip, the insider explains. She wants this to be their moment, not another family drama. But keeping a secret this big in the Gibbs family is nearly impossible. Betty calls daily. She still asks about their meals, their work schedule, and, yes, whether Julia has been feeling different lately. It's only a matter of time before she figures it out herself. So Brandon's decided to get ahead of the curve. In the upcoming episodes, viewers will see him plan an intimate dinner at his parents' home, complete with a home-cooked meal, a bottle of sparkling cider, and a small wrapped gift that contains the surprise of a lifetime, a onesie that says, Grandma and Grandpa's newest farmhand. Julia's mixed emotions. For Julia, this pregnancy is both thrilling and terrifying. She's long dreamed of having children, but not necessarily under a microscope. The cultural differences that defined much of her early relationship with Brandon haven't completely disappeared, and she fears that motherhood will only amplify them. Julia wants to raise her child in her own way, a close friend reveals. She respects Betty and Ron, but she doesn't want her baby to grow up in that same environment of constant judgment and pressure. Julia reportedly spent weeks convincing Brandon that they should tell his parents in a calm, controlled setting. No cameras, no surprises, no public scenes. But as 90-Day Fiancé fans know, calm and controlled rarely describes anything involving the Gibbs family. Brandon's big plan. In one particularly emotional confessional scene, Brandon is expected to open up about his conflicting feelings. I know my parents will be happy, he says. They've always wanted grandkids. But I also know my mom. She'll want to be involved in everything. The baby's room, the name, even how we feed it. I just don't want things to get out of hand again. Julia reportedly laughs nervously beside him, adding, If your mom tries to move in with us, I move out. It's classic Brandon and Julia. Love laced with humor, a touch of exasperation, and plenty of heart. But beneath the jokes, there's a genuine tenderness between them. The couple has grown tremendously since their early days of arguing over chores and city life. Now they seem to understand each other on a deeper level, and this pregnancy, rather than dividing them, has brought them closer than ever. The parents' reaction. So how will Betty and Ron take the news? Early reports suggest that viewers will see every emotion play across Betty's face. Shock, tears, joy, and perhaps even a hint of panic. Sources close to production say that when Brandon hands her the baby onesie, she initially thinks it's a joke. But once she realizes he's serious, She bursts into tears and hugs Julia so tightly that the younger woman can barely breathe. "I'm just so happy," Betty reportedly says through tears. "You two are going to be wonderful parents. And don't you worry. I'll help with everything." Cue Julia's nervous smile. Ron, as always, plays the steady hand. He congratulates his son, pats him on the back, and quietly reminds Betty that they'll do just fine without too much interference. But even he can't hide his excitement. "I've been waiting for this day," he admits. "Another generation of Gibbs coming into the world. It doesn't get better than that." The start of a new chapter. Despite their rocky past, it seems the Gibbs family may finally have a chance to start fresh. The pregnancy gives them something to unite around. Something bigger than farm chores, living arrangements, or cultural clashes. Brandon has reportedly been more confident than ever, taking charge of the baby preparations and making sure Julia feels supported. He's even reconnected with some of his old hobbies, like photography and landscaping, hoping to create a stable foundation for his growing family. Meanwhile, Julia has been leaning into her creative side, designing nursery ideas and posting cryptic but joyful photos on social media. A tiny pair of shoes here, a bouquet of baby's breath there, hinting that she's embracing this new role with optimism and love. What comes next? Of course, this is 90 Day Fiancé, and no storyline unfolds without a few bumps. Rumors suggest that Julia's pregnancy will bring up deeper questions about where they should live, how much involvement Betty should have, and what kind of future they truly want for their child. One teaser clip reportedly shows Julia telling Brandon, "I want my baby to grow up free, not under your mother's eyes every day." Another scene shows Betty suggesting they move back to the farm, just until the baby's born, a proposal that clearly doesn't sit well with Julia. But no matter the drama ahead, one thing is clear. Brandon and Julia's love has endured every obstacle thrown their way, and now with a baby on the way, they're more determined than ever to write their own version of happily ever after. As the new season unfolds, fans will watch the Gibbs family navigate this life-changing moment with all the laughter, tension, and emotion that made them household favorites. Whether Betty can step back, or whether Julia can truly trust her, remains to be seen. But for now, one thing's certain. The farm boy from Dinwiddie.